Everyone, welcome to the August Town Hall meeting, and for our folks joining us from home, welcome. Is this anybody's first time at a Town Hall meeting, joining us for the first time? Sally! All right, we got one. You're going to meet Sally in just a minute. So, well, welcome. We got a really action-packed agenda for you today. I got some cabinet members coming in to help present, and I'm going to share that with you in just a minute. Let's take a look at the agenda and what we're going to talk about today. So, first and foremost, you're going to get a formal introduction for Sally Hendrickson, our Director of Accounting, and then we're going to tie into a sales and marketing update from Deanie, and talk a little bit about some exciting stuff that's going to be taking place here next week, which is a sales photo shoot. We're really excited about that. Team's been talking about that for a while. And then as we wrap up, I'm going to do a financial check-in. So essentially, I'm going to give you some updates in terms of where we are 7 months into the year from a revenue and expense standpoint. Okay. So Sally is getting mic'd up, no pun intended.
Oh, that was awful.
So Sally, come on up. Yeah, come on up and introduce yourself. Yeah. We got a couple things here.
Yeah, you can hold that one. I think it needs to be turned on.
Maybe come in the front because we'll be able to see you better.
I have to put my glasses on even to see if this is on. So, can everyone hear me?
No.
Testing? No? No?
Yep.
Hello?
Just have to hold it up.
There you go.
I feel like this could be stand-up comedy, although I'm not, but numbers are my game, so I'm not a public speaker, so I appreciate your understanding if I have to read a little bit about myself. So I'm born in Westbury, Long Island, New York, but raised in Almost Heaven, West Virginia. So I graduated from WVU with a degree in accounting, and after obtaining my degree, I promised myself that I would never have to defrost another car lock. With the winters in West Virginia, and winters are just not my happy place. So after obtaining my CPA license in Greensboro, I also realized that auditing and 100-hour work weeks were not my passion. So I migrated south once again, and ended up in a PUD, 10,000-acre PUD named Wellington, Florida, which is a little bit west of West Palm Beach. I was a controller there. It was a country club operation, real estate development, actually for a company out of Chicago named Gould, and worked there for over 15 years. So it was a wonderful experience, wonderful people as well. But the best thing about it is I met my husband, Bill, who was the golf course superintendent for the golf club there. A crazy Texas A&M Aggie, and if anybody knows Aggies, they're a different bunch, but we've been married for over 33 years, so he's a keeper. We also have one incredible daughter named Maggie, who is also chosen accounting as her field, and she's up in Clarksville, Tennessee, and we are expecting our first grandchild in November of this year. So very excited about that. But after Florida, when Maggie was born, we decided that we didn't want to raise her in that certain environment. So we moved to East Tennessee and I worked there for a outdoor advertising company and was part owner of a graphic printing company. So then, lo and behold, Maggie graduated from University of Tennessee, and we decided, let's get back to where the weather was a little bit more enjoyable. So we've ended up here in the Low Country, love it. I worked for a wonderful private golf club in Beaufort for 6 years, and ended up here a week ago, Monday. And I have to say, it's been an incredibly wonderful experience. I've never met so many employees that are so happy to be at work. And so many welcoming, friendly residents that just make going to work a pleasure. So I want to thank you all for that and look forward to meeting all of you and working hard for continuing to keep your community probably one of the best in the area. Well, the best in the area, not probably. So I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Sally. I realized just a couple days in that we were in really good hands. So at the end of the day, we've got some staff in the accounting office that have really been through it over the last month and a half, holding down the fort, doing multiple jobs, just making ends meet, ensuring that the financials and the accounting office is just, stays on top of things. But 2 days in, as the staff are leaving, I see them giving Sally a hug. So I was like, I know we're in good hands because the staff are hugging Sally. So that really felt good for me because, I know the team's been through a lot and they appreciate you being here. So with that, we're gonna shift gears a little bit and I'm gonna invite Deanie up, and Deanie has a sales and marketing presentation that she'd like to share with you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? I'm not sure if I'm mic'd or not.
Well, that mic only goes into their in-house
Okay,
TV channel,
okay.
but that mic right there is for this room.
Okay.
See,
But they can hear me, so I don't need it.
Well, they'll tell you they can't.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think I've probably met everyone in this room already, so you all came through the sales process, either working with myself or with Cheryl. And what I wanted to do today was I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what we kind of do behind the scenes. You all know that we meet with folks, we tour folks, we try to keep everyone engaged. But what I'd like for you to know today is what we're doing, how our marketing dollars are being spent to promote this property. I always tell folks it's not a real estate transaction that I'm selling, it's a lifestyle that we're selling here at Tide Point. So I wanted to just kind of go through some of the things that we've been doing over the past year. So as you all very well know, we have a wait list. Were any of you on the wait list previously? Can I see hands? Okay. So you know how that works. So we did, at one point during the year, we've done a downsizing workshop where we invited a local real estate group to come in and talk about how folks downsize. How do you go through the process to get to a place here at Tide Point? Obviously, we're going from a larger home to a smaller home. So that seemed to be beneficial from our downsizing event. We also do, we did another downsizing event as well. So we've done a couple of them presented by the same local real estate company, and it's only because they specialize in that. So, and that's proven to be very effective for us and actually bringing people here, bringing people into Tide Point. We also do some small groups, and some of our ladies here have been very instrumental in having some of their junior league friends come in. We've done a luncheon for them, and then also toured homes. That's more of a smaller private group. We also do wait list events where we do invite our wait list to come in. We did an ice cream, it was last August, we did an ice cream social called Get the Scoop. They come in and, just learning about the new renovations of the clubhouse and learning a little bit more about Tide Point, meeting some more of the people that live here. Then we also did an open house over at our Broad Creek Care Center, and that was for our Tide Point residents and for our wait list. We do local sponsorships, as you probably all are aware. We have the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra is one of our, we sponsor the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra. We also are a sponsor of the Choral Society. And what you're seeing there, that's the ad that's actually on the back page of the Choral Society little magazine. We do the annual sponsorship of the Festival of Trees, which is a really fun event we like to do. That's in late November and December, where we're just a sponsor of the Festival of Trees. The Marriott Hotel, will host, Hilton Head Prep is they're kind of the one that organized this, but at the Marriott, you can go in and see all kind of trees decorated by locals in the community. And that's a fun event that we have, that we're a part of. Local advertising, you might have seen our ads in Local Life magazine. We do those 3 to 4 times a year. We just had an ad that ran this August edition of Local Life, and then our next ad is coming out in October for Local Life magazine. And we have several different ads. We try to change the pictures up just to keep them interesting. The Wall Street Journal. Did anybody see our ad in the Wall Street Journal by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, so that is actually a company initiative. That is not coming from our local Tide Point marketing budget. That is funded by V. V does that for all of their properties in all of their regions. So that was actually a corporate initiated advertising. So these are special, whether they're mailings, whether they're, again, another ad in Local Life magazine. So we do postcard mailings to our database, and we also purchase a list from a local mail house, or maybe a mail house out of Chicago that actually runs the zip codes that we're interested in marketing to. And so we will send postcards. We might send you see this Cape Hatteras floor plan right here at the bottom. Especially if we've got a few of the same floor plan, then we start, with our marketing and trying to get the word out that we've got these units available for sale. So the postcard event, and then of course you see over on the ad, over on the right-hand side, another Cape Hatteras ad. And then of course we do some local, we help the Broad Creek Care Center with some local things as well, as far as like trying to promote the Broad Creek Care Center and give tours over there, not only with our wait list, but then again, our Tide Point residents. And then this was an ad that is in the senior living guide, and that is specifically for Broad Creek. And you all may remember we did an event back in the spring. We called it Springtime in Paris, and if you all submitted referrals to us, we gave you some macaroons. We gave you a box of macaroons. We also gave the referrals that you submitted to us. If they came into tour, we also gave them the macaroons as well. So this is what we call resident referral events. You all are our greatest resource for people coming into this community. They want to know what you think about it. They want to know how you like living here. So you are our #1 resource for people coming into this community. We also do a sponsorship at the RBC Heritage. How many of you in here have volunteered for that before? Wow, that's a pretty good number. That is an event that we have kind of a captured audience with about 1,500 volunteers that are age and income qualified. We feel like that's a good target market for us, just to kind of be in front of them. So we sponsored the volunteer tent, and then we usually provide some type of, whether it's a fanny pack or a lanyard. I think this year we did a water bottle koozie that attaches to your belt. So that is something that we typically do, or we have been doing probably for the past 10 to 12 years, which has been very effective for us. And you all are pretty familiar with our Discover Tide Point events. Those are 2 events that we have to do twice a year. We do one typically in the spring, and then we do one in the fall. So that is where we try to generate brand new leads, people that have never been here before, to come in and we'll have a presentation for them in this room. After the presentation, we'll break for lunch, and then we'll typically tour the property right after that. And this is just some miscellaneous things that we're doing. As you all know, we do have the brochure that we send out to the people that are inquiring. We also have it in a digital form so that we can email it to someone if they're calling in and they want information immediately. We're able to email that brochure to them in 5 minutes. And it's really the same thing that you get when you get it in the mail. We do maintain our website, the Tide Point website. And we do have a platform called Constant Contact. That's something where we can email folks out typically on a weekly, bi-weekly basis of the current listings we have or the current events that might be happening at Tide Point. Any questions about the marketing or the promos and materials that we have here that have been, that you're familiar with? Yes, ma'am.
Have we updated the website? The last time I looked at it, it had some old carpet in the ballroom.
Thank you so much. That is, you're leading into my next thing I'm going to talk about. So yeah, where we see that our website has yellow, red, and green carpeting and furniture and walls. We are having a professional photographer come in next week. They actually arrive on Sunday, but I don't think they'll be on site Monday, but Sunday. But Monday they're going to come do a scout. They're going to find out what rooms they want to photograph. What time of day is the best time of day for their lighting. We're dependent upon tides out here in the back. But we will have a couple of marketing folks from our corporate office come in. Our Vice President of Sales and Marketing, David Eglin. And then another gentleman from our marketing team named Nicholas Bragos. Our ad agency, they're called Tom, Dick, and Harry. And there will be a couple of representatives, account agents from Tom, Dick, and Harry here. And then we'll have the photographer, he'll have an assistant, and then he'll have a stylist with him. So we're gonna make sure that the clubhouse looks fabulous, so that we can update that website and we can update our marketing material. We had to wait on kind of the last piece, which was the bar, and now I think we're ready to go. So I hope you won't be interrupted by any of the photographers or photography going on next week. We will maybe, we're gonna try to shoot some of the rooms that are not around your breakfast, lunch, and dinner times. We're going to try to do a little crowd control in the rotunda when they're photographing that, but that shouldn't be that big of a deal. We'll have enough people around here that can help out with that.
Yeah, Deanie, we can actually take a look at some of the other slides that we got here in terms of what's going to take place on the 27th.
Okay.
So these are the areas that they're going to, so on the 26th, they're going to be out at the gazebo on Monday evening, doing some shots, food shots out there. And then on Tuesday, they're going to be in and about the rotunda in all these areas. So now you're probably thinking, what is a stylist, right? Is Deanie going to get makeup and hair done and everything like that? That's probably the first thing that crossed your mind, or maybe even some of you. I saw some people say stylist. We're going to tell you a little bit about the stylist in just a minute, but these are the areas they're going to focus on Tuesday. And then as they go through, Deanie already mentioned some of this, but these are some of the areas that we're going to need to either block off or we're going to need to monitor as a result of the photo shoot. So on Monday night, Quentin's and security team are actually going to block off the front of the lobby area out front, parking. So on Tuesday morning, nobody will be able to park out there because the first thing in the morning, that's where they're going to do photos first thing in the morning. And then throughout the day, you're going to see stanchions and areas that sort of blocked off to sort of guide folks through the rotunda area. So you'll see that. I call it crowd control. There's not going to be a lot of people, but we're using big terms here. It's a big thing for us. And then we do have a professional stylist that will be arranging furniture and tabletop accessories. Now I have that in there. I should have probably floated that in or bolted it or something like that. What is that? What that all means for us is that when they come and move stuff around for the photos, please don't move it. Please don't grab it and put it back over there. Just let it sit. Just let it sit. Let Tom, Dick, and Harry do their thing with the photo shoot, okay? That's something that's really important. And that's what's happening on Monday and Tuesday of next week. Thank you, Deanie. I love that name, Tom, Dick, and Harry. Who would not want to have a business, Tom, Dick, and Harry? That is a catchphrase that will catch anybody's attention. So I wanted to share with you some information today, what I'm calling a financial check-in. in terms of how we're doing overall as a community, Tide Point specific, in regards to our budget versus our actual performance. So there's some areas I'm going to focus on here. One is the revenue piece, which is really resident fees, which include the first and second person, and then other fees that we get throughout the community. It could be dining, it could be somebody's doing something within maintenance. There's a charge for that as well. Trips, there's fees associated with that. So I'm going to give you a big high-level picture in terms of how we're doing overall with fees, and then I'm going to share some highlights in terms of expenses, in terms of overall how we're doing with expenses and the impact of some things that we're seeing. So let's jump in. So looks like the finance committee, so they're all going to understand this. But so generally, when you have a budget, whether it's your own budget at home or whether it's a budget here, you have with either income or we consider it revenue here. So and we budget for that, and we budget for that based on occupancy. So the number of homes that are occupied, and then within each home, is there one person or is there two people? So the second person is what we call a double lock, and then there's additional fees associated with that. So I wanted to share that currently year to date that we're over $100,000 behind in revenue, and with the bulk of that being primarily due to second resident fees. So probably about 75% of that shortfall is due to second resident fees. So year to date, if you took a look at that second resident fee line, we're trending about 6 residents below what our budget is. And our budgets are generally based on the prior year performance. So when we're doing the budget, and we're actually getting ready to do that, they will take a look at the first 8 months of the year and see the trends that are taking place. And then they will forecast the last 4 months and have a projection for the end of the year. So then we can take a look at that and say, okay, this is what we feel we can do in the following year. So last year, you'll see that, we had more second residents. And so we budgeted higher on the second residents. But when you take a look at our actual performance, we're actually year to date short 6 second residents. So how does that happen? Well, in the simplest form, when Deanie has open homes to sell, they're either big or small, right? They're either villas, the 1,200 square foot footprints, or they could be the verandas or even the cottages. Generally, when there's 2 folks moving in, they're gonna take a larger unit. They just need a little bit more space. So we are seeing more open vacant homes this year that are smaller than we did last year. As a result of that, we're seeing more folks on the wait list that are 1 person versus 2 persons. That's something that we really can't control. I think when we're taking a look at next year, we'll do a deeper dive into that and say, hey, this balances out a little bit. We can't really plan all big ones opening up, or they're not all going to be small ones either, but we have to find a balance. So maybe we take a trend line over the last 2 to 3 years versus just the last year. So the good news is that Deanie continues to have couples move in, but it's going to be hard to catch up, from the prior 6 or 7 months in terms of revenue, the lost revenue as a result of that. Some other areas you're going to see in the revenue is if you had an income statement is dining, particularly liquor sales are down versus last year. So last year, whether it's special events or liquor sales was higher than we're seeing trend this year. So I don't know if that was a result of maybe the temporary bar that we had in place. We had that over a couple months. Maybe bottled wine sales a little bit lower. Maybe folks are getting out of the community and buying their own wine more than they bought it internally over the last couple of years. But we are seeing a trend in lower beverage sales. And then let's take a look at expenses. So what I did is I put this in, try to keep it in larger buckets. So our biggest expense here at Tide Point and for most businesses, is salaries and wages. So it's the employees that work here, it's the managers that work here, and some benefits associated with that. When I say benefits associated with that, is generally paid time off, or what we consider PTO. So salaries is our biggest expense. As a matter of fact, I believe it's over 55% of every dollar that is brought in revenue, we pay out 55 cents in labor. So that's a pretty big bucket. So if you take a look at the salaries and wages, these are two big buckets that are driving them over. One being overtime. So if you take a look at the overtime from January to July, rolled up for the community, it's $30,000 worse in budget. So how can that happen? Well, I will say that our overtime is better than last year, but some of the reasons that happens is open positions. So say you got an open position, we can use a culinary as an example. They might have a cook position open, they might have a manager position open, and as a result of that, you gotta backfill those positions. And when you're backfilling, you're pulling from existing resources, meaning our current staff, so that drives overtime. So as a team, the cabinet feels that we have some opportunities around that to do it better. I will say that generally we're gonna have some overtime, and the reason is that, I'm gonna use chef again, is if chef has 10 cooks in the kitchen, one goes on vacation, he's gonna need to use some overtime to fill those shifts. But we don't budget 11 cooks knowing that we're gonna have somebody out on vacation all year. We just don't over budget that way, because sometimes that can get you into a different scenario. Now you have too much labor on hand and not enough people taking vacations. So, but generally we're gonna have some overtime, but we feel there's an opportunity to do it better. The second bucket is what we call PTO, earned paid time off. So the way V does paid time off, it's one big bucket. It's your vacation time, your sick time, and your holidays. So, and then you have an opportunity to use that as you choose. So some companies might have vacations, some might have a separate bucket for sick, and others might have a separate bucket for other areas that you might take time off. So here we do it in one big bucket, but as we are, one of the reasons that this is higher is when we were going through the budgeting process last year, and we made a decision to bring our security and gatehouse in-house versus contract, we put the dollars in, but I don't believe we really hit that bucket the way we should have. So we're seeing some additional staff here that PTO wasn't appropriately budgeted. And then some of our, when folks earn that on a weekly basis, and we don't use it on the back end, it becomes more of a liability for us. So we're seeing a little bit higher liability year to date. That's essentially 5,000, 4,000 more for the community per month for the year. But we are seeing some higher liability as a result of PTO earned. And then we get into maintenance. Now maintenance is a big bucket. It's one of our biggest buckets besides dining. And the reason, and when I took a look at the roll-up, there's some areas that really have hit pretty hard for maintenance year to date. And these are unbudgeted items, so stuff happens. And the emergency system category, which is our risers, which are, if you go into the stairwells, those big pipes, we call them risers. And then we have valves in there, and then we have sprinklers attached to all that. We've seen some leaks and replacements in that area. We've also seen some of the folks in the 301, 501 building from time to time might hear the alarm go beep, beep, beep. It resets it, and then the next day you're calling up and saying, hey, there's additional beep, beep, beeps. Well, the company came in and finally did an evaluation, and they identified some sensors in and around the community that needed to be replaced, which actually was not a budgeted expense either, so that led to a higher cost there. And then in the mechanical bucket, compared to budget, it's $45,000 there. A lot of that is related to HVAC, air conditioning, throughout the community, mainly replacements or repairs. And then there's some additional costs over budget associated with the elevator contract. And there was 1 month of overlap that we had the previous company on board. We had the new company come in. We had a month of overlap that we paid for. And there was an invoice from last year that actually didn't get sent to us by the prior company until early this year that we had to pay for. So, I mean, that's a pretty big, those two areas, pretty big bucket combined. Some other expenses, so security. Ended up bringing that in-house last year. And I did want to make a point about security. So we did budget lower based on bringing that in-house. If we had kept it at if we had kept security with contracted services, we would have had to budget $80,000 more for this community versus bringing it in-house. So this is the first year that Carrie and the security team are rolling through this. But so I'm thinking that overall, given the circumstances that we've had to deal with the conversion, using some temporary help along the way, along the journey, because we haven't been able to fully fill those positions, $10K unfavorable is not too bad. The other bonus is you know, that you can't directly tie to money is the experience. So I think if we took a poll, we would probably say 90% or better that the experience at the Gatehouse is a lot better than the experience at the Gatehouse last year. There's a lot of hiccups. We're getting the warmth and friendliness and the hospitality from the Gatehouse folks. So, you know, I'm really happy to say, and pleased to say that I think our security team's doing a great job. And then overall community supplies. In the big scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, but it is 10K unfavorable, and we're seeing that related to paper and chemicals. Paper supplies, to-go supplies. That's probably our biggest paper cost in the community. We do about 80 to-goes meals a night. Times that by 30 days a month, that's 2,400 a month. Times that over the course of the year, that's a lot of paper supplies. So what we have seen in some areas is minimal price increases, but even with minimal price increases, when you're buying that much paper, it can move things in the wrong direction. And then the last piece is recruitment. This is just for Tie Point. So recruitment is probably any HR retirees in here. Recruitment's always big at any community, but we're seeing recruiting costs continue to go up. Matter of fact, I'm going to share a story. One of our cabinet members, actually, family member, signed up for the Marines. And when they contacted him, they wanted to see if he could go in early. And he did say, hey, I can go in early, but they pay a sort of a stipend, a bonus, a sign-on bonus, pretty substantial to go in early. So you may not have seen that in your time, but nowadays they are paying the U.S. Armed Forces sign-on bonuses if you want to join early, if you want to get in the game early, which isn't a bad thing because there's not a lot of people that want to do that kind of work. It's dangerous work. It's tough work. So I say that to say this. Sometimes we have to do the same here. We have to do sign-on bonuses. Sometimes there's relocation costs. Sometimes there's stipends that we have to share, that we have to pay our staff, you know, if they're doing 2 or more jobs, you know, in the community. So these costs can add up. And then, so job postings and background checks, and then also we have the relocation expenses in that bucket. So when you roll all this up, we do have an unfavorable year-to-date balance with our budget of $173,000. Some of that is related to expenses, and some of that is related to the revenue shortfall that we're seeing that drops right to that line as well. So I wanted to share some areas that the team is going to be focusing on, the cabinet and our leadership team. Although we don't have the plan fully baked with every department, this is a high level, we've had some high level discussions. So first and foremost, the overtime. Where there are opportunities, we're going to address that. We're going to do our best to minimize overtime. So we've done that in some of the departments already, mainly dining. We've been able to draw that down somewhat. I know the chef is working hard in the kitchen to be able to draw that down. Some departments do really well. Housekeeping does really well. Maintenance does really well. Lifestyles, resident services overall does pretty good. So culinary is probably our biggest opportunity, and dining. And then we're going to take a look at our budget for the fourth quarter and see if there's any opportunity to move any of those large purchases that we might have budgeted in Q4 to Q1 of 2025. As an example, we just did window washing. You know, that was a pretty pricey, expense. This is $20-some thousand for the community. Is there any other opportunities like that that we might be able to say, hey, let's take a look at this. Just talk with our committees, just talk with the board, just run it through the finance committee and say, hey, we'd just like to push this to Q1 of 2025. So we're going to take a look at opportunities there. Expense control. So that's a really overall encompassing, encompasses a lot. It could be salaries and wages, it could be controllable items, but we're definitely going to be taking a look to see, hey, where can we sharpen the pencil, so to speak, and do a better job with our expenses. And somewhat tied to that is inventory management. And what I mean by that is that let's ensure that if we purchase something that we're using what we have on the shelf, whether it's chemicals or whether it's paper supplies, to really get that stretched out to minimize our purchases through the rest of the year. And then another one, the open position one is just something that I feel that we need to do as we have open positions, is take a look at it. Can we put a hold on it for a little bit? Do we need to bring that person in right away? Generally in our environment, we're gonna bring people in because we are a very labor-intensive industry. Everything is related to services that we provide. But there might be an opportunity here or there to say, hey, let's just hold on that for another 8 weeks. By the time we get them in, it's gonna be pushing into 2025. So later on this month, you will get Mr. Perryman's, he sends out a newsletter, and part of that newsletter, there's a document that you're gonna see in there that is gonna be reflective of some of the numbers that I just talked about. It's a high level document, but actually he's gonna share that document's available on the app. But I wanted to get ahead of him sharing that information just to ensure that you have some context about why things are over and what the challenges are and what our team is doing about it. So if we do end up with a negative budget, negative variance at the end of the year, unfavorable, what happens is that money comes out of the reserve back into to sort of pay that unfavorable variance is taken out of the reserve. So that's the last thing that we want to see happen, but it has happened the last 2 years. The trend right now is not favorable. We're going to do our best to mitigate that and minimize that. And Beanie, we need some more double ups. We need a lot of double ups. Yeah, and so anyways, that was my last piece about that. I just wanted to see if there was any questions. Yes, sir.
Michael, do we have any comparison to other operations or any other community that's 30 years old like ours, to put it into context?
I mean, we do have some what I call KPIs, key performance indicators, that I know in the dining world we have them, that we're going to be tying into. I'll give an example. So overall, if you take a look at the income statement, dining doesn't look too bad. Year to date, it's about $1,500 worse than budget. So chef overall has done a good job of managing those dollars. But when you take a look at the KPIs, the key performance indicators, you'll see that our resident days overall as a community are lower than we budgeted. A lot of that is related to the second person, or we might have some open apartments, even though members are still paying for those, the person is not in there. So our cost per resident day is actually $1 over budget, even though so there's efficiencies that can be gained by chefs saying, okay, per budget, we should have 300 members here, but really there's only 275. Folks are out of town, there's some empty vacant apartments, so I shouldn't be buying food for 300 people. I should be buying food for 275. So like some of those KPIs and stuff, things that we're gonna be looking at. That is one that just comes to mind. There might be some other ones. Maybe the finance committee might have some suggestions around what you actually would be looking for, and we can take a look at that. I think the sales piece overall, if you take a look at our occupancy, we're 100% occupied, which is a key indicator for any community in this business. But the second person, we don't have a lot of double ups, so to speak. So you're gonna see that fluctuate with every community. It happened in my last community. I think on that end, we just need to do sharpen the pencil with budgeting, just to make sure we're not over stating what we think is gonna happen. Okay. All right, so how about just some other updates, and then we'll go many open general questions. In a couple weeks, we're gonna be doing the Mingle with Mike on September 12th, 10 o'clock right here. And then if we look about a month out, we're gonna be tying back into our town hall meeting on September 26th. That once again will be here at 10 o'clock in the morning on right here in the ballroom. So maybe this needs to settle a little bit. You might have some additional questions. If you do, feel free to reach out to me or one of your cabinet members or through the finance committee, and we'll do our best to answer them. I do know that our team, the cabinet and our leadership team, is committed to doing the best that they can to draw down some of these numbers where we can. Some of the numbers are related to expenses that weren't budgeted that just happened. So it's tough to control the HVAC concerns. It's tough to control emergency systems when you have leaks or you have beeps on systems that need to get repaired. So some of those things are uncontrollable, and from time to time are going to happen, and they have happened this year. But I know our team is committed to doing the best they can. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.